Silence settled over the room. The students from the Women's Center looked uneasy. "You're in a cult?" Langdon nodded and lowered his voice in conspiratorial whisper. "Don't tell anyone, but on the pagan day of the sun god, Ra, I kneel at the foot of ancient instruments of torture and consume ritualistic symbols of blood and flesh." The class looked horrified. Langdon shrugged. "And if any of you care to join me, come to the Harvard Chapel on Sunday, kneel beneath the crucifix, and take Holy Commission." The class remained silent. Langdon winked. "Open your minds, friends. We all fear what we don't understand." And that is what this book is about, the lost symbol. I think the theme of this book is that, like he said, you fear what you don't know, and that everything is not what it seems. I think that's the theme because throughout the book, it is a bunch of twists and turns.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in the beginning of the book is they're at the U.S. Chapel, like on the front cover, which is why I think they chose that as the front cover. And they find a hand, just a single hand, like cut off of somebody's body.
A dismembered hand?
Yes. And there's tattoos on the hand, and it's pointing up like this. So Langdon is called there on a business trip, apparently, from a person who he doesn't even know, but he goes there because it's a business trip, and he just assumed that it was real. So in this expert right here, it explains it. "I'm certain that they all have tattoos on the fingertips as well." Sato looked intrigued by the comment and motioned to Anderson. "Chief, can you look over the fingertips for us, please?" Anderson crouched down beside the hand, and be careful not to touch it. He put his cheek on the floor and looked at the fingertips. "He's right, ma'am. All fingertips had tattoos, except for the one I can't see what's under. A sun and lantern and key." Sato turned fully to Langdon, her eyes appraising him. "And how exactly do you know what that is?" Langdon stared back. "The image of a human hand marked in this way of the fingertips is a very old icon. It's known as the Hand of Mysteries." So also in this book, Langdon, he's a professor, and he's a part of this cult, like in that first expert. It's called the Masonic cult, and it's actually real.
The Masons?
Yeah, the Masons.
Like the Masons we have now?
Yes.
Oh.
But in this book, they're kind of dramatized.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a Mason, and he is sent to the U.S. Capitol to go on his journey. The person who called him, it ends up revealing that it's actually not an actual worker person, but it ends up to be someone trying to figure out the mysteries of the Masons. So he sends them on all the journeys. Like he sent the dismembered hand in order to find this pyramid. And they end up finding the pyramid, and now they're on this run so that they don't get caught.
Caught by who?
His name is, actually, it's hard to say. It's Malachi. And
so is this book kind of biblical based, or?
It's not necessarily biblical based, but it's spiritual, but not necessarily biblical, because it explains in here how they're not religious, but they do believe in a higher power.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in conclusion of the book, they go on the adventure to figure out how they can stop him from getting the mystery solved, because it's all these encryptions, and that's why Robert is there, Robert Langdon, the professor. They want him to decrypt all the messages, and he's not really sure who to trust, because every time he trusts a person, like the theme, they're not always as they seem. In Malachi, he's described as a person who's very tall and thoroughly shaved. He has tattoos all over his body, but he uses makeup to cover them all up.
Deception.
Yes, which is another theme, deception, and everything is how they seem. So, in the end, I can't really tell you how it ends because I want you to read this.
I'm not going to read it.
Yes, you can.
You should ask your dad to read it, being that he's a free will Mason. I'm not going to read this. It sounds interesting, but I'm not going to read it.
In the end, it says, Oh, and throughout the story, Robert is unsure why he was chosen, because
Mhm.
wouldn't you be unsure if somebody sends you to the U.S. Capitol and you find out there's a bunch of symbols and a dismembered hand
Yeah.
involved? So in this passage, it explains
Sorry.
kind of why. So it says, Bellamy, which is the person who designed the U.S. Capitol, laid the package on the desk, knowing two halves of the Masonic pyramid was closer together tonight than they should be. Find someone else to watch this. He's telling this to the person who's got his hand cut off. He's
Okay.
missing. Find someone else to watch this. Don't tell me who it is. Solomon nodded. And I know where you can hide the pyramid, Bellamy said. He told Solomon about the Capitol building's sub-basement. There's no place in Washington more secure. Bellamy recalled Solomon liking the idea right away because he felt it was symbolically adept to hide the pyramid in the symbolic heart of our nation. Typical Solomon, Bellamy thought, the idealist in a crisis. Now, 10 years later, as Bellamy was shoved blindly through the liberty of Congress, he knew that the crisis tonight was far from over. He also knew that Solomon had chosen to guard the capsule, and he prayed to God that Robert Langdon was up for the job. So, was Robert successful throughout this job? You should really figure out by finishing this
I
book.
don't know.
Well, Dad
the
can
cover
finish
looks
out.
pretty.
It's really
Scary.
interesting. Like, I
What made
read
you
this.
choose that book?
I like reading books that are very different, and when I saw this cover, the title is The Lost Symbol. It sounds like, what lost symbol? So I wanted to read it to figure out what the lost symbol was. And it also taught me about decrypting codes, which I figured out in summer camp, so it was kind of cool to connect those together.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Coding.
Yep. And he also wrote the Da Vinci Code.
Oh.
Yeah.
Looks like a powerful read. Thanks for sharing.
No problem.